you got to play the game. And
Yeah, well,
sometimes
that's-
even from you, when you just said to me, you said, well, sometimes it's not right to turn a blind eye on things. And it's like, sometimes you have to. If you want to get yourself to a position, like
Well, it seems to me that you're making a distinction between discipline and strategy, like, and like impulsive moral responding. Like let's say that you are in a situation where you have a boss who's intolerable, and maybe what you'd like to do, the resentment is built up over 5 years, and you'd like to go in there and yell at him and tell him everything you think. And you think, well, that's the truth. It's like, well, it's not a very sophisticated truth, because you're doing a shallow and impulsive analysis of the situation. Like, it would have been the case that you've already compromised yourself in 500 ways. And I'll get back to the playing the game issue, because you do have to discipline yourself too. And you have to discipline yourself to some degree by allowing yourself to do arbitrary things that are part of the system, right? That's a necessary part of discipline. And discriminating that from compliance with unethical activity is very difficult. So that's a hard situation. But let's say you're going to counsel someone who has an intolerable boss, and they come in and they're right at the end of their tether, because maybe that's why they come for counseling. They say, I really want to tell that son of a bitch what I think of him. And you think, well, wait a second here. Okay, first of all, you've already eradicated from the list of reasonable possibilities that decision by failing to say small things that you could have said all the way along. And it's not like you can just all of a sudden blurt all of that out now, and that wipes the slate clean, and that constitutes truth. It's too unsophisticated. So let's think, okay, so what is it that you want? Well, I don't want this job anymore. It's like, okay, now let's actually have a strategy about this then. You don't want this job anymore. Can you get another job? Well, I don't think so. Well, so you can't just quit. Well, no, I can't, because then I don't have any money and my family depends on the job. It's like, okay, so you can't just stop this. That's not a viable solution. You go out of the frying pan into the fire, or you substitute one set of unethical actions for another set of unethical actions that are even worse. That's not helpful. All right, so let's start thinking about what exactly it is that you want. It's like, well, maybe I want a better job. I want to work for someone who's more reasonable. Okay, so what's stopping you? Well, I don't have my CV in order. My resume isn't up to date. Well, why is that? Well, I haven't done it for 5 years and I don't like doing it. Well, why is that? Well, because I'm kind of embarrassed about it, because it has holes in it and it shows where I'm lackadaisical and where I'm not prepared. It's like, okay, how many things are there like that? Well, there's a bunch of things, and they're all associated with how I've procrastinated in the past. It's like, okay, what are we going to do to rectify that? So I'll say to people, why don't you update your CV? That's what we'll do first, because if you're going to look for a different job, I'm not saying you're going to look for a different job. But if you're going to look for a different job, you're not going to unless your CV is updated.
Yeah.
So why don't you go?
You're also not going to unless you can get a good recommendation from this boss that's a tyrant. And
well,
so
that's right.
You gotta play the game.
There's
sometimes.
10 strategic actions that you're going to have to take in order to make yourself able to move laterally or up. And the truth isn't going in and yelling at your boss and telling him everything you think about him. The truth is trying to figure out the very, very difficult process of how you put yourself in a better position. And that like, one of the things that's quite fun about this lecture tour is the letters that I receive, or the stories that people tell me about switching jobs, because they do realize that and I often talk to people about consulting their resentment. Resentment's a really useful emotion. Like, it's really dangerous. It's one of the most dangerous psychological states, I believe. But it's unbelievably useful, because resentment usually only means one of two things. It either means quit whining and take it on because you're immature, or it means you're allowing yourself to be taken advantage of and you have something to say or do. And so you want to sort out the first part and find out if you're just being immature, and you can think that through and you can talk to people. But if it's the second, it's like, no, you've compromised yourself in a variety of ways, and you have to figure out how to get out of that. And if you're resentful, that's evidence that you have in fact done that. Okay, so now the issue would be, well, how can you set your life up so that you can be without that resentment? And so that's when you start to develop a strategy for, there's actually an adventure in this too. I mean, I've had a number of clients who have been in jobs that they didn't like at all. And, they were tyrannized by someone, for example, and they were also working below their hypothetical level. And we'd put together a plan. It's like, okay, you're going to make 3 times as much money in 5 years. That's the plan. But that's not going to be simple. So there's education. You got to educate yourself, maybe formally, because you've got holes. You got to fix up your resume. You've got to overcome your fear of being interviewed. You have to start sending out 50 resumes a week on a regular basis and be prepared for a 99% rejection rate. You're going to look for a different job. It's probably going to take 6 months to a year, and almost all of that is going to be rejection. And you got to steel yourself for that and prepare. And maybe this is going to be a 3-year process. It's no trivial thing, but it's almost inevitably, I can't remember a single example where the consequence of that very careful, detailed, strategic thinking wasn't a massively substantive improvement in socioeconomic positioning and a great movement towards an improving trajectory. And there's advantages even along the way, because even before that happens, the fact that you're taking genuine steps to put yourself in a better situation immediately starts to reduce your resentment, even if it isn't having positive consequences to begin with. But you have to be realistic about it. It's like, look, it's going to be hard to update your CV because you're embarrassed about it, and you should be. Right? It's no wonder you're embarrassed about it. And then, well, of course you don't want to go be interviewed because you're not very good at it, and there's holes in your story, and you can be made nervous easily, and you're not a very good advocate for yourself. So there's a lot of improvement that needs to be done there. And then you have to withstand the punishment of being constantly rejected when you apply for jobs, because the baseline rejection rate, for the typical job applicant is 99%. It's like the rejection rate for everything. Is this going to work? No. But if you do it 100 times, it might work once. That's all you need. That's exactly it. You only need that once. And so the truth there isn't to yell at your boss. The truth there is to get your life together.
Yeah.